The Missing Children of Nivelles Forest. It was a morning like any other in the small town of Nivelles, Belgium. The kind of morning where the air feels crisp, the sky a soft pale blue, and the world seems suspended in a brief moment of serenity. But that peace was soon shattered. In 1993, two children, Léa and Mathieu, vanished without a trace from the edge of the Nivelles Forest, a sprawling expanse of trees, winding trails, and deep shadows that had always been part of their everyday lives. The forest, thick with history and legend, had never seemed dangerous, until that day. The sun had barely begun to climb when the children, ages 8 and 10, set off into the woods, as they often did. They were supposed to return before lunch. But as the day wore on, and the sky began to deepen, the only thing that grew was their parents' anxiety. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, their parents had already started to panic. Léa and Mathieu were nowhere to be found. The woods, so familiar and comforting, now seemed menacing, hiding something far more sinister. Building suspense, the search begins. As twilight fell over the village, the townspeople sprang into action. Word spread quickly, and soon the small town was transformed into a frantic hub of activity. Volunteers armed with flashlights ventured into the forest, calling the children's names, their voices trembling with fear. But the woods remained eerily silent. The thick, damp leaves underfoot muffled their steps. The branches, heavy with moisture, whispered in the wind. Time seemed to stretch, each minute an eternity. Hours passed with no sign of the children. The search parties became desperate. The local police, who were accustomed to handling small, minor incidents, had no answers. And by the time night had fully settled in, the forest seemed to swallow up every trace of life. No footprints, no stray clothing, no discarded belongings, nothing. The moon hung low, casting a pale, ghostly light over the thick trees. The only sounds now were the distant calls of owls and the occasional rustle of a night animal. It was as if the forest itself was hiding something, as if it didn't want to be found. The growing mystery, a darker presence? Days passed, but the forest remained silent. There were no calls, no ransom demands, no sightings from witnesses. The case baffled authorities, and the town of Nivelles began to transform. Whispers started to emerge, rumors about the forest, about things that lurked in its depths. Some people spoke of strange flickering lights seen deep inside the trees, lights that seemed to move like fireflies, but without any clear source. Others swore they heard the sound of children's laughter, faint but unmistakable, carried by the wind. But when they ventured to the source, they found nothing. Just trees, shadows, the wind. People began to talk about the forest in hushed tones. Was it possible that something otherworldly had taken the children? Some spoke of old legends, ancient stories passed down through generations about spirits in the woods. Others believed it was the work of something far darker. Was it the work of a stranger, someone who had been hiding in the woods? Or was there something more to the mystery? Authorities seemed stumped. Search dogs brought in to track the children's scent returned without results. The trail, once promising, abruptly stopped at the edge of the forest. It was as though the children had disappeared into thin air. Their footprints simply vanished, swallowed by the earth. Yet the more time passed, the stranger the case became. The growing sense of unease crept into the very fabric of the town. How could two children vanish without a trace? What kind of force could erase all evidence so completely? Climax: a disturbing discovery. Then, nearly a month after the children's disappearance, something was found. A local hunter, walking deep into the woods far from the well-trodden paths, stumbled upon an object that would change everything. In a small clearing, partially hidden beneath some low-hanging branches, he found a doll. It wasn't just any doll, but an old, faded one. Its eyes were cracked, its clothes frayed and torn, as though it had been abandoned for years. But what sent a shiver down the hunter's spine was the expression on its face, blank, hollow, almost lifeless. The authorities were called in once more. Forensic experts arrived, but the doll offered no answers. No fingerprints, no DNA, no clue that connected it directly to the children. Yet, it seemed too deliberate to be a random piece of trash. It felt like a sign. But of what? The doll was examined thoroughly, but nothing of significance turned up. It was sent to experts who concluded that it had likely been there for some time. But still, the question lingered: how did it end up so deep in the forest, so far from the children's usual playing grounds? The town's unease only grew as more questions arose. Was the doll left as a marker? A message? Or was it just another eerie piece of the puzzle that would remain unsolved? Conclusion: the forest's silent secret. To this day, Léa and Mathieu remain missing. Their story, like the forest itself, is a mystery. A riddle wrapped in an enigma. The search, once so frantic, has slowed to a crawl, but the questions linger, unanswered. The Nivelles Forest stands still, its ancient trees guarding its secrets. The laughter of children, faint but distinct, is sometimes heard by those who venture too far into the woods at night. The strange flickering lights, are they simply a trick of the eyes, or do they signal something far darker? And the doll? Was it a clue, a warning, or something else altogether? No one knows. And the forest? It waits. Silent. Unyielding. What truly happened to Léa and Mathieu? The town of Nivelles will never forget, but the truth, if it even exists, remains locked within the shadows of the Nivelles Forest. The mystery, still unsolved.